I am continuing to tell you about a man named Justin Martyr. He was born in the year 100 AD, and he lived to be 65. And so last week we talked about his young life as a young man, how he had many teachers that each came and basically taught him about a different perspective on life. You see, as a young man, he was very intrigued in discovering truth and the meaning of life. These kinds of heavy questions really weighed on his heart, and he pondered them, and he searched all that he could through philosophy and intelligence of his time to discover the answers. However, through each of his teachers giving him a different worldly perspective on life, they all fell short. None of them really felt true to him. Each of them disappointed him. Until when he was about 30 years old, he met an old man who introduced him to the gospel and the prophets, and how all throughout the old writings of the prophets, they prophesied the coming of the Messiah and different prophecies having to do with Jesus, and how in the writings of the apostles, how Jesus fulfilled each one of those prophecies. And so, reading through these writings and coming to understand the gospel really changed his life. He finally found the truth that he was searching for so long. And so, with this newfound change in his life, he was led to write two apologies, letters, so to speak, to the emperor of Rome at the time. The first one consisted generally of the worship of Christians at that time, and it was to convince the emperor that Christianity should not be an illegal religion, that it was a proper religion. And so he mapped out how the Christian church would meet, how early Christians met together, usually at a home of someone who could provide it or at another place, and how they always met on Sundays. And he talked about how they would read through either the writings of the apostles or the prophets for as long as time permitted. And afterwards, the pastor, the leader of the church, would discuss the readings and would basically give advice on practical application. Following this, they would have a meal brought out to represent the Last Supper as a remembrance, how we do every first Sunday of the month. And they would often, if they could, have a meal, and they would celebrate and sing hymns together. And they would spend most of the day together often, and just worshiping God. And so his second apology came out shortly after his first one, and it continued to spread the gospel around the Roman Empire. And to this day, we use both of his writings to understand the early church, the early Christians more. So a few years after that, unfortunately, Justin and his disciples were arrested for their faith. And when he was arrested, the prefect demanded that he refuse Christ and that he denounce his faith and sacrifice to the pagan gods. However, he responded that how can any man in his right mind deny true belief for false?
Amen.
And so, with that, they were taken out and executed. And so because he was martyred, he was surnamed Martyr. And we know him as Justin Martyr. So thank you. Let's bring music up.